It's good to have you join us on New Frontiers Television, and the program is still Frontline. And I'm checking for me, moving ahead now to our interview segment where we're discussing a topic this morning. And this topic touches lives across Nigeria, not just Nigeria alone, but across the world. And the topic is sickle cell disease, breaking the silence. And this is an illness that affects millions, and yet too often remain hidden in silence. And it seems that it keep reoccurring, across the world, not just Nigeria, alone. And today we will be exploring what it is and why does this stigma is still around us, when we still have, improvement in technology, and most importantly, how do we raise a voice for change on this particular matter? And to join us in the advocacy of this particular disease that we did mention, the sickle cell in Nigeria, I have a dedicated advocate who is a medical scientist and is a medical lab scientist, and he's also the director of operation for the Sickle Cell Hope Alive Foundation, and he's also the principal medical lab scientist at the Institute for Advanced Medical Research and Training at the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan. I have right in the studio. You're welcome, sir. That's Abayomi or Detunde. It's good to have you joining us on Differences Television.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now let's begin. Now, for viewers who might not, understand, and for those who might just be hearing, sickle cell disease, not for the first time, but yes, they might have been hearing, the word sickle cell, but they might not know, the details about, this sickle cell disease. How does sickle cell, affect lives?
Okay, thank you once again for having me. Sickle cell disease is a blood disorder, and it is inherited. In our blood, the blood is made up of different components. We have the liquid, we have what we call the cellular part. And in the cellular part, we have different types of cells. We have the white blood cells, we have the red blood cells. And in the red blood cell, that is why you see the blood red. There's an object, there are things inside the red blood cell that we call hemoglobin. This hemoglobin, the type of hemoglobin an individual has, they are inherited from, we inherit them from our parents. And so when people say genotype, it's like trying to know the type of hemoglobin that you have inherited from your parent. And this hemoglobin varies because you have the protein and the iron side of it. So the protein side is what we inherit. So this hemoglobin varies. There are different types of it. The popular ones that we always talk about, we have the A, we have the S, we have the C. And there are others too, but these are the common ones. So for a child, we inherit either one of these from our parent. And so when somebody inherits the type S from the father and the type S from the mother, then it becomes SS. And or in some cases, when they inherit the S from either of the parent and the C, then it becomes SC. These types of blood are referred to as sickle cell blood. And so what really happens is that this sickle cell blood, they are not normal hemoglobin, and so they don't function as normal hemoglobin that we have in the A. So what happens is when this hemoglobin in the cell are subjected to stress or reduced oxygen tension, they tend to sickle. And so when they sickle, a lot of things happen. It's like trying to, sometimes when we have veins in our capillaries, so it gets to a stage when the function changes and a lot of things. They are not normal. One, the red blood cell is supposed to live for 120 days. Theirs is like for 60, 40 days. They don't function normally. And so in some conditions, people who inherit this type of hemoglobin is the sickle cell. They have things we call crisis. So, and then these are they are painful situations. Some people have likened it to a situation, pains mothers go through at childbirth. And a lot of things happen to them, you know, that are just not, we can't, so these are the change, you know, as we go on, we'll talk about that.
All right, that's a very good one. All right, now let's talk about, you know, some misconceptions that you've encountered, you know, on the field while you're trying to educate people about the sickle cell, and what are the biggest misconception? You know, let's start from there.
Yeah, you know, we live in a world where a lot of people attribute things to spirituality, and these are people, children born with sickle cell disease. Some, most of the time, back in those days, they were referred to as abiku, and because then there were no medical care, and so many of them don't even know. So these children die early, and maybe when they make another baby as another sickle cell. Two, it has also been attributed to witchcraft, you know, polygamies back then, you know, and even now, you know, people say when you have two wives and the child of one is dying, and then they say, it is this one that is killing the other one's children, no? So, and then people begin to label the other one as witch, you know. Some people will also say that, in that family, don't go and marry there. They had 4 or 5 children, and it's only one that is remaining. So if you marry from that family, all of your children will be dying. And so a lot of myths have been attributed to it, but thank God for science and technology that has demystified some of these thoughts.
All right, now let's talk about, you did mention, okay, for the layman, we'll talk about the AS, you know, the AA, the SC, and some of those things that you mentioned, which you would, you know, expatiate now. But we, as a layman, will talk about them as carriers. Now, what is now the difference between the carrier AS and the SS and SC? Is there anything to fear about for those that have the carrier AC and, you know, some other ones?
Yeah, so, well, like I said, they are in pairs, you know, AA, AS, SC, AS, and the rest. So for a carrier that is AS, you know, so the A, you know, confers some strength, you know, and so when that individual, even when the S cells are sickling, it doesn't show him more, you know, it doesn't come up. Many people don't note it. And that is why sometimes they even say AS, it's difficult for them to come down with malaria, because they carry 2 types of, you know. So if it is affecting the malaria, is affecting the S part of the S cells, you know. So they die, and then the A is not affected. So, yeah, but it's not as if it will not be affected. But so that confers some strength, you know. So even like with this SC that you're talking about, we say they are sicklers too. But the the C, you know, is a little bit stronger than the S because it doesn't sickle, you know. So, but sometimes it also depends on the percentage of S as an individual carries. So sometimes even some people with even AS, you know, sometimes you see some people saying they still have some pains and not having. The percentage of S in an individual blood also matters, you know, sometimes too. So that's the difference.
All right, now there's been advocacy across, you know, the world right now about this disease, but it seems that we keep still having, you know, reoccurrence. Now, what is expected of individuals, you know, to know in order to eradicate, you know, sickle cell to some extent?
Yeah, so, you know, we say sickle cell is preventable, and you know, it's also still challenging that in this day and time we have people still bearing children with sickle cell disease, and then you wonder why. So a lot of things have been attributed to it. One, misdiagnosis, and people go to laboratories where you don't have qualified personnel, and then the technical competence of the person also, doing the test. So we say people should go to laboratories or hospitals where they know they have competence in testing. So it is not just going to say, okay, I have done it, and they say, so you need to be sure of where you go to. And also some people deceive each other also, in the name of love. You are AS, and your partner is also AS. Yes. But in the name of love, some people will hide. They will hide, and then until the thing now begins to happen. And so when you are talking to people, they say, and I asked my husband, and as my husband will say, and I asked my wife, she said she's AA. So these are some of the things that, the reasons why we still have some of them. I mean, people still bearing SSG, sickle cell children till now.
All right, now, do we have, the manifestation of the sickle cells, different in adulthood and during childhood? Is it different, the manifestation of the sickle cell?
There's no major difference, but you see, the thing is this. That's why we are preaching early diagnosis. If this disease is diagnosed early, there are things that people do. There are vaccines, there are medications that they give to children that are diagnosed early. And then when this is done, they tend to do well, So the manifestation, even as adults, is not much, when they have taken all the necessary precautions. But where you don't do that, then there's no major difference between what happens as a child and when you grow up. And sometimes when the disease begins to manifest early, and as you grow up, it becomes even worse, So that's it, So, but as a child, our parents who know, we always take care of their children. So sometimes it doesn't, but when they grow up and some of them are careless, it begins to manifest, and a lot of things happens thereafter. So
okay, now for advanced research that has happened in recent time, who are those that can benefit from stem transplant or gene therapy or any other drug, yes, that can alleviate the pain?
Yeah, so really not the pain, but because all of those are targeted at the marrow that produces the blood, because the blood is produced by through the bone marrow and all of those. So stem cells, marrow transplant, and all of these are targeted at that. So anybody can benefit, but it's just that in this part of the world, technology is not there yet, and even when it is there, how many people can afford it? So looking for all of this, even the marrow that matches, is also challenging. Because you need to look for those that they need to match so that there won't be reaction and all of those things. So these are the challenges in the developed world. Some of these technologies are successful, and we've had people travel abroad to even do marrow transplant too. So but here there was one celebrated one in Benin. So but how many people can do that? And with the health situation we have in our country now, so that's where we are now.
All right, now just like our topic mentioned, that breaking silence of this particular disease, and I believe that yes, we've been able to establish some of the facts about the sickle cell disease. Now let's talk about the advocacy in a bit to break the silence, because people seem not to talk about this most of the time. Now you have a foundation as the director of the operation of the Sickle Cell Hope and Life Foundation. Now what do you do in the foundation to ensure that sickle cell disease become a thing of the past?
Yeah, so largely we do awareness, because our foundation is basically, we have 3 missions. We have we tackle it through advocacy, we care for those who have it already, and then we do research, you know. Because we know awareness is key, because this disease is preventable.
Yes.
And so we have had several programs targeted at different sections of life. We have reached out to market women, artisans, scholars, and what have you. And right now we have a program that we call Know Your Genotype. Know Your Genotype is targeted to secondary school students. We are even at a tender age, before you grow old, before you begin to go into relationship, you know your genotype. You know the type of blood you're carrying, and then so you can make informed decisions. Sure. We have also been at the time we involved core members, you know, so to help propagate this slogan, wherein people know their genotype. They help educate communities where they serve, and then telling people the need to know their genotype and why they should know their genotype. We have also gone to churches, you know, we have gone to mosques, you know, because these are places where we really need to reach. You know, there's always this mistake until couples go for counseling. Yes. You know, before they say, okay, where is your genotype result? Sometimes it's late, because in some places people don't even go for counseling until it's about 3 or 2 months to wedding. And everybody is already aware that we are going for this party. So what happens thereafter? You know, we have had personally have had a situation wherein when you now tell them, because you can't tell anybody not to marry. The wife and the guy broke down. I mean, the lady broke down. What happened thereafter, I didn't know. But these are challenges. So we need to reach out to these people, the men of God, and even both in all spheres of life, to tell their congregation the need to know the type of blood they carry. And then you explain to them why they need to be careful, so that in future they will not run into challenges of bearing you know, children with sickle cell disease. And because when you know what these people go through, you will never wish your enemy to go through that. So there's a need for a concerted effort in creating awareness, you know, wherever that we are, you know, in whatever sphere of life that we are, telling people about why they need to know the type of blood they carry, so as to prevent this disease. And like we all know, prevention is better than cure. And also those who also have it, you don't throw them away. We need to care for them, you know, through provision of medications. They have regular medications that they take, routine medication. And also, like I said, research. We also do research into new technologies that are coming up, and to find out how we can alleviate or improve on the quality of life that people with SCD lead.
All right, now you talked about medication. That will lead me to this question. What are the risks of self-medicating or reliance on herbal remedies instead of going for a proper treatment?
Yeah, so we don't advocate that people indulge in self-medication. And even when you will use herbal, we ask that you tread cautiously. We are not saying that some of these herbal therapy are not good. You know, we have had even some of the medications that people take, you know, some of them are from herbal. You've heard of the Oriental thing, where people chew, and some other things like that. They are, well, some will say they are herbal. So, but we say that you should be cautious, because the body itself is fallible. That is, their system is compromised. So when you now overload it again, then you know that then there is a problem. Yes. So that is why they should not involve themselves in self-medication. You know, some people will say, when I have crisis, I know what I take. Mm-hmm. So they will not consult their doctors before they take such medication. But you know, these days people are even talking of personal therapy. You know, sometimes the medication that I take may be different from, may not work for another person. So that is why you need to see your doctor, so that your doctor will guide you accordingly as to what to take. So we advise them not to self-medicate, see their doctors regularly, do what is necessary, and if they do all of these things, they can lead a normal life.
All right, now talking about living a normal life. Now, how do we, through advocacy that you mentioned earlier, ensure that we shift the public understanding of individuals living with the sickle cell disease as pitiful, but rather shifting it to a point where they can be empowered and they can be resilient?
Yeah, so that's where the government comes in, because nobody want, a lot of people will not want to take somebody who is an SCD patient. Why? Because they say, this person that you cannot rely on. Tomorrow you will say, I'm in the hospital. To the next tomorrow you will see him. The next tomorrow you say, my leg is paining me. So these are some of the challenges, and why because they have a lot of challenges, even have leg ulcers, and if not well taken care of, when they come in, some offensive order comes. So people will say, we want to work with this person. We will, even not just at work, even at home where they live. A lot of people want to avoid them. So this is where the government comes in. There should be a policy wherein people should not stigmatize these people. They are normal people, and then we have had some of them become professors. We have some of them become even MD of organizations. So we need the society to come together. It is our support that they need, not our pity. They don't need our pity. They need our support to help them achieve their goals, So if we take care of them very well, because even go to government places, how many of them are employed by the government? Because even at the point of interview, they say, this person may not be able to cope, So, but you have not given them that opportunity, even though there are jobs that they can do. So, but the ones that they can do, let us give to them. So, like I said, it is not pity. They need our support, So let us not say we are pitying them. I cannot give you this job out of pity, but we are giving you to support you. To support them.
All right. Now you talk about they should be given to what they can do. Now, do we have, medically now, what limits that you would advise? Okay, so for individuals who live with the SCD, these are the limit of what you should be able to do, and these are the limit of what you should not, do. Do we have something like that for individuals who live with this sickle cell disease? Of to what extent should they do some things and not do some other things?
Yeah, so everybody, we have our limit, even as a normal, even if you have a normal hemoglobin. Like me, it's like you see me, I'm fat. I know my limit. I can sometimes, even though I tend to do exercise by walking, I cannot run on the stairs to a third floor building. I'll be panting. So when I do maybe get to the first floor, I relax and then move on. You cannot say a sickle cell, an SCD patient should start playing football because there's money in football. You cannot say an SCD patient should, even though you read civil engineering, it should be plastering or carrying blocks and all of those. So everybody knows his or her, should know his or her limit. We are not saying so there are jobs that, or even typewriting, even they can be secretary, but this hand that they use, like I said, when they begin to use it, sometimes the blood, their capillaries, all of if it's blocked, then crisis can occur. So they are not meant for something too hard, too tough, even though many of them want to do it. And that's why you say some people will tell you they are stubborn. Because if you have a child, two children, and then one is, you say this one should go out and play ball, this other one will now be thinking, well, why are you saying I should not play ball? And then as children, they say in Kotori, what they say I should not, let me try it and see. And so they want to do what normal people with normal age are doing. So it's not, I mean, it's just, for me, it's just a normal thing that people should think as such. But we should let them know what they can do right from childhood, you know, right from childhood, so that it will help them to live a normal life.
All right. Now, what are the, do we have, apart from advocacy, or that, do we have, some preventive measures, like immunization that seeks to eradicate this? Do we have something like that?
No, immunization cannot eradicate it.
Okay.
Like I said, it is genetic. It takes a woman and a man to give a product of SCD. So if out of that, there's nothing, there's no medication except all of these means that, and then maybe miracle, So, so because it's like where the blood is manufactured, you need to work on it, So the only medication is the medication that will reduce the rate at which all of this sickling take place.
All right. Now, in case of crisis, in any public place, do the community has a role to play, in helping individuals who, might have a crisis in a public space?
Yes, the community have a role. Like I said, that it is not pity, because a lot of people will say, today it has started again, and then they say, our life is too much, and then they tend to abandon them. At that point, they need our care and support. We need to get them to the nearest available medical facilities or facility where they can be adequately and properly taken care of, so that such conditions will not aggravate and lead to something more complex, and then begin to do worse than it were. So there's still support. So family, we need to be supportive when there are crises. I mean, and even when you have children like that, we need to know what to do immediately. And that's why we advocate that many of them register with facilities that are close to where they are, even either at home or at work, wherein if there's challenges comes up, they can easily go to and get medical attention. So,
all right, that's a good one, and we want to appreciate our guest for today, who is the Director of Operation for the Sickle Cell Disease Hope Alive Foundation, and he's also a medical lab scientist, and he also works at the Institute for Advanced Medical Research and Training in the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan. It's good to have you, joining us today to talk about the sickle cell disease and breaking, the silence. Thank you so much for coming around.
It's a
and
pleasure.
We heard from our guest, about how well we have a role as individuals to ensure that sickle cell disease is eradicated in our community. And I think the advocacy is high now. We continue, to do our part as media to ensure that we have that knowledge about our own genotype. I think we'll begin from the issue of the genotype. That will help a lot if we do advocacy more on the genotype.
Yeah, so everybody has a part to play. I'm glad that an organization like this is calling us to tell the people what sickle cell is, and it will be good if you have jingles and series wherein people are talked to know the reasons why they need to know their genotype. Media houses and organizations should do this, not necessarily because we know some of them are out to make money, but these are things that we need, social responsibilities to our community, because when it happens, sometimes it will also come back to us.
Definitely, you know, what goes around,
Comes
never
around.
comes around. You know, we live in a society where, you know, we need each other, you know, regardless of how far or near, you know, we might be to one another. All right, thank you so much for coming around. We do appreciate, you know, your presence in the studio today. All right, yes, the advocacy will definitely continue. But yes, we would have to wrap up the show right now. Thank you so much for joining us on New Frontiers Television and the program Frontline. My name is Shegun Fumi Oyedokon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good morning.